Hello, I'm journalist and comedian James Mullinger. Almost 10 years ago, I left London, England and moved to St. John, New Brunswick. Since then, my stand-up career has taken me to just about every town and city in Atlantic Canada, which, let's face it, has provided plenty of material. But I've also come to realise that this place is special and, crucially, underappreciated. So my wife Pam and I started a magazine, the Maritime Edit, to celebrate the natural beauty of the region and the incredible spirit of the people here. Here on the Maritime Edit's Atlantic edition, I've had the pleasure of meeting some of Atlantic Canada's most interesting and dynamic people and learned what drives and inspires them, and heard what they love about this place that we're all so proud to call home. Now I'm utterly delighted to be back on the road for a third and final tour of inspiring conversations with a whole new crop of fascinating Atlantic Canadians. Today I'm heading to Madawaska First Nation in New Brunswick to meet one of the most important leaders of our generation, Chief Patricia Bernard. Chief Bernard has spent her life advocating for the advancement of the Wolastoqey and Indigenous people of New Brunswick, from cultural visibility to recognition of treaty rights. She fought for 23 years and successfully secured a historic $145 million land claim settlement for her community, which at the time was the largest in Canadian history. She was the first Wolastoqey woman to graduate with a law degree, has been appointed to the Order of New Brunswick, and since 2013 has been Chief of Madawaska First Nation, where, alongside an all-female council, they've been a model for Indigenous Economic Development, receiving a national award in 2018 as Indigenous Economic Developer of the Year. I cannot wait to meet her and hear her perspectives on all that she's accomplished and what we can learn from this heroic leader. I'm James Mullinger, and this is Atlantic Edition. I'm in the traditional ancestral territory of the Wolastoqey people to meet one of New Brunswick's most accomplished and dynamic leaders, Madawaska First Nation Chief Patricia Bernard. Chief Patricia is a trailblazer in so many ways, from being the first Wolastoqey woman to attain a law degree, to then using that law degree to secure her community what was at the time the largest land claim settlement in Canadian history. She is a courageous, compassionate and collaborative leader who's a role model for both Indigenous and non-Indigenous youth. I'm meeting her at her camp today to learn more about that epic 25-year land claim, what draws her to community service, and most importantly, her love of horses. Here we go. Chief Patricia!
Hello!
It is such an honour to finally meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Thank you so much for having me here in what is basically paradise.
Thank you, it is. It definitely is for me.
How did this come to be? Is this somewhere that you reside most of the time, or is this somewhere that you just bring people like me to come and have a party?
Well, it's only been about a year that I've had the property. I happened to come across the property by chance, so it ended up being fate for me because my whole dream has been basically what you see in front of you, having a horse barn and a camp, and this is pretty much where I'll likely retire.
Amazing. I mean, how beautiful to have a plan and for it all to come together. How did that come together? How did the fortuitous moment occur?
Well, a little more than a year ago, I was walking down this road and with one of my friends, we met the owner of the property here just by chance, and he came out to see the horses, and my friend said, "Hey, is your property for sale?" So he said, "Well, maybe," and you know, one thing led to another, and now we have about 200 acres here, and it's the beginning of my dream.
Oh, well, it's an amazing dream, and I love it to see dreams come true. And it sounds like you've done a lot in a year. So you built this as well?
We built this.
Wow.
We renovated the 100-year-old home and started to build a beautiful barn with the indoor riding arena.
Oh, incredible. So that you can enjoy the horses all year round.
Absolutely, absolutely. Snow gets very deep here, and there's not much you can do for about 3 or 4 months, so the indoor riding arena will remedy that.
Absolutely, and it's stunning. I can't wait to meet the horses. I can't wait to see around. But I don't want to keep you outside on what is the first day of snow in New Brunswick winter this year. Shall we head inside to chat?
Sure.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Show me the way.
Okay.
Here we are.
It's warmer in here.
It certainly is warmer in here. I think it's nice to be able to feel my lips again.
Yes.
Thanks again for doing this.
No problem.
We have so much to talk about. You've done so much in your amazing life, but I suppose a good place to start is at the beginning. What do you think it was about your upbringing in childhood in Madawaska First Nation that kind of led you to such an incredible life of leadership and advocacy?
Wow. Okay. So I was born in Boston. I'm the youngest of 7 children, and we were all born there. My father moved to Boston. He grew up on the reserve and moved there to find work, and that's where he met my mother, who's an Italian woman, a DiMaggio actually, and so. He married her, they had 7 children, and then they decided to return to the reserve with all of the children. So I was 3 years old when I moved back to the reserve, or moved to the reserve. So growing up on the reserve, I got married quite young. I was 18, and by the time I was 21, I had 2 children. And then I decided to go to university while I was in Fredericton. So I did my undergrad in education. Wow. And that was fun, and I focused on history, and I focused a lot of history on my own personal history, and I did a lot of research about my own community and my ancestors, and learned quite a bit about my community and my culture and my history, and that was amazing.
Right.
But
when you say that, do you think it was was it the injustices of history, or was it the way in which history dictates the way the world is now? What do you think it was that fascinated you most about it?
Well, obviously stories. I always loved stories. So going back into history and learning, that sparked me into, an adventure of decades long to see some injustices rectified. During that time in research, I came across maps of my community. And some of those maps showed the reserve being about 4,000 or 5,000 acres, and others at maybe 2,000 acres. And finally, the reserve ended up to be less than 800 acres. And there was no explanation as to how the reserve diminished in size. So when I went into law school, I quickly learned that the Canadian government has what's called a specific claims policy, where if the government breaches any kind of lawful obligation to a community or First Nation, they can make a claim. So when I was second year law school, I put together some of my research and made the claim basically saying that Canada alienated the reserve unlawfully, like they didn't go through the legal process of doing that. Right. And that was the commencement of a 25-year process.
Yeah. A 25-year process that was ultimately successful and the biggest land claim, I believe, in Canadian history. I mean, how did you ever know that you would? How did you have the strength to know that you were going to be successful, that the fight was worth it, and indeed to kind of keep fighting for so long?
Well, when I did the research, when you do the research, you're looking for answers. So you're also looking for an explanation of, okay, was this done right? And I could find nothing. And so I knew in my heart that this had to be rectified. Right. And so it became a part of me. It became a mission that I wouldn't give up on.
So do you think it was, you obviously grew up with a very kind of finite, sense of right and wrong. And when something is wrong like this, and so blatantly wrong, you, in your heart, you were not willing to give on something which was clearly, they're clearly in the wrong.
It's not even something I really thought about. It's just I knew in my heart that this was the right thing, and this I was going to win. And I had a lot of naysayers saying, "Oh, you're not going to beat the government. Forget about it." At this point, I'm already a lawyer, and I was a counselor in the community. So I did hire another lawyer who was a little more attuned to the law, and Paul Williams, and he helped me quite a bit. But we together were the dream team, and we argued this at a couple of weeks of hearing, and we were successful. The judge came out and found in our favor.
So how did that feel?
Oh, that was amazing. So that day I knew it was coming. And so I was waiting, checking my emails. Well, the decision came through at lunchtime. So I was in my office. And when it came through, and I just briefly, flew through it. And of course you run to the back page to see, And I remember just screaming, but everyone had gone for lunch. So I was in the office alone, and I had to find someone. I was like, okay, I need to tell someone. So I'm running down the halls, and I found someone way off on the other side of the building in the lunchroom, and I'm like crying, and they were just like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And it was like total joy. It was 19 years from the time it was submitted to the time that the decision found in our favor. Now that wasn't the end of it though, because then came the compensation part and the negotiation over that whole loss.
It's an incredible thing, but I'd love to go back, because we kind of glossed over the fact that you decided to stop studying teaching and decided to take up law. Were you aware at that point what a trailblazer you were being, and that you would be the first Wolastoqey woman to study law? And did you realize that this was something that hadn't been done before?
No, I actually, those are things that I stumbled across, and other people had sort of came to me and told me. So those are, I didn't go out to be a trailblazer. It just happened to be that way. And since it's been 22 years since I was called to the bar, but there's been quite a few other young Maliseet women who have followed suit, which is fantastic. And we need more lawyers, I think, in our nation to help fight for these injustices. Like, for example, the Crown owns all land in Canada, which is an unfathomable kind of concept when you think, well, wait a minute, how does the Crown own it? How did they get it? Yeah. And there wasn't a war fought, and they didn't buy it. So how did they get it?
We were talking earlier about the fact that Edmundston and all the surrounding areas have become this kind of destination for people that just love snowmobiling, and it's one of the best places in the world to do this. Can you tell me a bit about that, and when that kind of realization happened, that in addition to having all of those amenities at the power station that tens of thousands of people, I'm sure, are kind of passing through every week, that you can then also kind of benefit from the tourism as well?
Well, the success of the Grey Rock Power Centre has been tremendous, and has really put our community, I think, on the map. We had a Ford dealership come in, and that has been tremendous in opening the eyes of non-Native people, saying, wow, we could get in there as well. And we've grown to have like a motorsports place, a hotel, and a giant tiger, a Dollarama, and a sports store, and a fishing store, and a bar. So things are definitely moving along, and a food court. So it's growing, and it's a great area because the location is fantastic.
Yeah.
And our community is thriving for that. Like our standard of living has been lifted. We have great housing and infrastructure. And we dedicate a lot of our revenue to education and health, and these things are being shown, and taking care of our elders, providing youth care. It's it's continuing to grow, and it's fantastic.
It's an amazing thing to see, and it's a beautiful thing and an inspiration to so many people. And then looking at the country as a whole, and issues across this country, and indeed the government we currently have into power and whoever's next. Do you feel like Canada is on the path to any form of kind of meaningful reconciliation? And if not, what can people do to help, or indeed guide that?
Well, I believe in reconciliation. It's a lot of people are skeptical, but I do believe it can happen. The biggest problem with reconciliation is recognizing that what the system has done. And I've said this before, it's a house of cards. And that's a difficult thing to actually even think about. If your system was built on a false foundation, and you recognize that, then what does that mean? Right. It means that everything else is illegitimate. So but do I think it can happen? Absolutely. But that admission has to happen first.
Right. So if it's all right with you, I think I'll retire here too.
Absolutely, it's paradise.
It is absolutely gorgeous here. I mean, just stunning world-class views all around, and for a horse lover, I mean, where else could you want to be?
Nowhere but in the open spaces.
That is it. And I noticed that obviously as your stable ranch is being completed, we are in true New Brunswick fashion here in your neighbour's yard.
That's right, that's right. My horses started out here, and until my place is finished, they'll remain here.
Amazing. And your horses are good friends with the neighbours' horses?
Absolutely. They make a great herd. They're just gorgeous. They all get along. They have to establish their own pecking order every now and then, but...
hey, we all need to do that.
That's right. Yes.
And so when you come here and you're surrounded with your horses, how does it make you feel when you ride, when you're with them?
Well, with my busy lifestyle, coming here is, and what I tell everybody, it's my medicine. I come here and everything just melts away. When you're with a horse who is so in tune to your feelings and your body language, it just commands that you relax and enjoy just being in the moment with them, because they're not thinking about yesterday and they're not thinking about tomorrow. They're living today. So for me, being with my horses is my medicine. It centers me and really, really decompresses and just fills me with joy. Right from the first day I ever laid eyes on a horse.
When was that? When was that moment?
Well, I asked my mother, because I never remember not loving horses. And she says, well, when we took the ride from Boston to the reserve, we passed farms and I saw horses. And she said, you never stopped talking about them since. And throughout my childhood, I used to run around on all fours, and I used to go into the playground and think all the kids were my herd. And it was just, I was obsessed, and circumstances led me to have to give up horses for a few decades. But when I had the opportunity to get back into it, I just dove in. And a little more than a year ago, I got my first horse, and I have 6 now.
Wow.
So
you're making up for lost time.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, you're going to kill me for asking this, but which is your favourite horse?
Oh, so, I got 6 of them.
Yeah.
Now, all my life I've dreamed about a Frisian horse. And so my first horse, Raya, and she's right there, standing looking at us.
Yes.
She's only 4.
You're her favourite too, clearly.
Yeah, she was the first one that I got, and I had her imported over from the Netherlands. And she's just a sweetheart. She's gorgeous. It took me a year to find her, but when I got her and I had her here, I just fell in love. The only problem is she's not super trained. I need to work with her and work on the ground and get her respecting my space a little bit more. And then, so then I figured, I got to get a horse from my husband if I want him to participate. So when I went to get Oscar, who's the other black Frisian, he came with the Mustang. So I got them two together. And then I just figured I needed a quarter horse. I needed a well-trained horse. So I got a horse from Ohio, and that's Grey Rock. So Grey Rock is my real trained riding horse, and I love him. He's a gelding, he's sweet as pie. And then the final two horses I got were paint horses, and they came to me kind of by accident. I got a phone call from a guy saying, I hear you buy horses, and I'm like, no, I haven't. He says, come and take a look at my two paints, and so I did, and of course I fell in love and I had to get them. So I have 6 now, but the 2 that I usually that are mine really are my first Frisian, and her name's Raya, and my quarter horse, and his name's Grey Rock.
Absolutely beautiful. So Grey Rock's the one that you would put an amateur like myself on?
Yes, I would.
Okay, perfect. Okay, let's see what happens with that.
Yes.
Episode 2, stay tuned. And then what would you say is your main wish and hope for the future of your community, and indeed New Brunswick as a whole?
Well, for my community, I really would love to see things continue to prosper. And for the community members to take pride in our culture and our traditions and our history and in our language. And I wish that not only for my community, but for the nation. And through this, I would also hope that New Brunswickers can understand and take pride in the history of the land in which they're now living and residing. And for us all to get along and participate in the economy and continue to grow in this beautiful province.
Absolutely, wise words. And what advice would you give to a young Indigenous person, or indeed non-Indigenous person, who is looking to bring about positive change and be a trailblazer or do something important? What advice would you give to them as they begin their journey?
The number one advice that I would give is just never give up. You're going to hit some speed bumps, you're going to hit some downs, but just never give up. Just keep trucking, keep going, and follow your heart and your dreams.
Well, you never gave up, and look where we are.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for... Can we hug on? Thank you for an amazing day.
You just wanted to warm up.
I needed to warm up. It works. You did it. See? You really can do it all.
So would you like to go down and see them?
I would love to.
Perfect.
Let's do it.
Let's go.